Hello, hello, amazing entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 307, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/307. I have a special guest for our episode today. It's the amazing Jo Bendle. She's one of the most productive people I know, but she does it in such a cool, calm, collected way that it almost looks effortless from the outside. So I'm really excited to introduce Jo to those of you who may not have met her before. And in this interview, we talk about productivity, being more effective, and really going bigger when it comes to your goals and what you're able to achieve in your business without burning yourself out. So I hope you find this really helpful. All the links are at tashcorbin.com/307. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Hello, hello. Welcome to this special Spotlight Series episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. I'm joined today by the amazing Jo Bendle. Hello, Jo.
Hello, Tash. I am super excited to be here. I know that when you and I get together, we have juicy conversations.
Oh, yes.
Where will this one go?
And we haven't had you on the podcast for over 2 years, by the way. So that is an absolute travesty.
Wow.
So this is our opportunity to fix that. I'm super excited. So for those people who may be new to the podcast and have not heard you before, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jo. I'm the founder of the Meant for More movement, and I work with women, empowering them to claim more from life and business. And it has been almost a 10-year journey right now, which is super exciting. And that is exactly what Meant for More is about. It's like everything that I have tried, everything that I have gone through is in this beautiful framework of like, right, this is, it's all come about from, it started all about productivity. And then I realized, oh yeah, it doesn't really matter how many tools you've got. If you're really, really stuck in self-doubt and your mindset's not there and you don't have the belief, you don't know where you're going, all of this stuff to, along the way, like literally battle tested. What did I do? What did I do to keep outgrowing my goals? And so, yeah, everything is about empowering women to step up, get out of their own way and to claim more. And I still use the same tools again and again and again. And I think that's the point. It's like we're constantly trying to overcomplicate and rewrite the story when it's like, hey, look, simple works.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that always blew me away when I first discovered your work and we first met all those years ago was how effectively you bring together productivity tools with the mindset stuff that we need to actually use the tools effectively, and I just absolutely adore that this has now come full circle into this Meant for More movement. And, the thing that strikes me about you every time I see an update from you on social media is how big your goals are and how diligently and resiliently you strive towards those goals. But it's like almost like that whole duck thing, right? Like it looks like you're gliding your way along to those goals. And, I feel like you must be doing a lot of paddling beneath the surface here to be able to achieve those big things. I mean, you went mobile and packed everything up and lived abroad, and then you bought yourself a place in Spain and you've facilitated amazing live events, and I know you're going on a bit of a speaking tour, so there's just so many things that you've achieved, and I'd love to know from you, what is your secret to achieving all of these amazing goals while making it look so effortless?
Oh, thank you, Tash. That's amazing. It's so lovely when somebody else reflects. One of the things I will say is surround yourself by people who believe in you, because if you can see yourself through the eyes of others, I remember people saying to me, oh, you're somebody that takes so much action. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm always getting in my own way. When we borrow how other people see us, we can be like, it's the identity, constantly stepping into this new identity of that's who I am. Okay, so the reality is I always had a big vision of which drove me forward. So I've always suffered with self-doubt. It's been a massive part of my journey before my business, through my business, which is why whenever I talk about, here's some productivity tools. Well, one, like freedom is my top value. I don't want to be stuck in, like, everybody thinks that productivity is about like very structured and rigid, but that isn't going to work for someone like me. So I had to find a way for it to, kind of work with my sort of tendencies of like rebel tendencies, I suppose. But the reality is it was about, my thoughts are causing the problem. So I was always coming back to, like, what are my thoughts? Because it's about getting in my own way. Like, I'm always playing small, but it's these stories that I'm telling myself. And when we can actually call ourselves out and be like, but is that true? Like, that's a story. Now, what would be a more empowering story? And using that so that I'm constantly trying to, it is really about this identity of stepping into the person who does things differently. And this has been such a learning curve for me. And I honestly can genuinely say it has been up and down, and I've loved it. Like, I've really, really loved the journey that my business has taken me on, but it hasn't been easy. It's not about someone gives us a tool and we're like, oh, I should be able to make that work. It doesn't, I think going back to answering your question is like having a few, like knowing myself. This was about trying things, seeing what worked, what didn't work, noticing, because we're all so unique. So it was about what works for me. And it's about being able to be way more comfortable with who I am. Okay, well, this is who I am. This is how I do things. So instead of beating myself up about it, how does it, how can I make this work for me? And going back to like the big goals. So it's like I always had a vision. Like I had a big vision. It's like when I started, I want to run a location independent business. I want to be able to have this freedom, financial, time, location. And, for quite a few years, I didn't have that. But I was like, okay, like, how do I make this, but I had that driving me forward. So I kept going. Like I kept trying different things because I wasn't available for it not working. Yeah. Like that is a really big thing around, if we're trying to work towards somebody else's goal, or that, the goal that somebody else has put on the internet that we're like, oh, that's probably something I should go for. When the going gets tough and when your procrastination strikes and your doubts strike, you're not going to go after it. Whereas my vision was so personal. I was like, nothing will stop me.
Yeah. I've heard you talk before about you're chasing the wrong goals and, are you actually setting the right goals in the first place? So, what do you think it is that drives people to choose the wrong goals? What's the wrong goals?
Yeah, well, that's just coming back to like, is that, so if we think about setting goals for our business, like when I set big goals for my business, I know exactly what my lifestyle goals are. So I want to bring them together. It's like, if I go after, and a great example is I used to have a membership, and when I created that, I knew that I was going to be location independent. I needed a business that didn't need me in it everyday coaching. Yeah. And so I'm setting business goals that are aligned to the lifestyle goals that I'm trying to create. Then when I bought the house in Spain, I was like, oh, I feel disconnected because another value of mine that wasn't getting met is connection. So then I was like, okay, so my business changes and evolves because of my values, because I know what on a daily basis I want or need. And, so that's one thing, is like knowing your values and knowing what you're trying to create from a lifestyle perspective. Also, then just putting your head down, not looking at what everyone else is doing. Yeah. Because their goal isn't going to, it's got to move something inside of you. Like if it, like for now, originally my goals were always about myself, my own lifestyle, all I was trying to create for that. Of course, then it evolved into, oh my gosh, like I am so driven by helping other people do that. Like I really get, same as you, like we get such a kick out of supporting somebody else to be like, oh my gosh, Joe, because of you, like this has just happened in my life, so now I'm really driven by the mission, which is really around that Meant for More movement. And again, it comes back to, yes, we want to get you into action mode, and I can give you the tools. And like, there's a very simple process that I know is, as soon as I drop out of it, things feel harder. I don't achieve as much, all of that stuff. But we want to get you into action mode so all of your stuff comes up. So that the not good enough thoughts come up, or who am I to do this? Or life's okay. Am I allowed to want more? Like, get yourself into action mode, bring all that stuff up, because that's what's keeping you, stuck or stopping you from your next level, really.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it's funny actually, because one of the things that I just shared on one of my recent Facebook Lives was that action is the biggest uncoverer of your mindset blocks. And you can theorize about what your mindset blocks might be, but until you take the action, you won't have the clarity of what's actually getting in your way. So, again, it sounds like you're using the productivity and the action taking as the insight into why we're keeping ourselves small, why we're keeping ourselves stuck, why we're resisting taking the action in the first place. When you've got a to-do list of 45 things or 45,000 things, as some of my peeps have, it's very easy to convince yourself you're working, you're getting things done, you're moving things forward when you're just doing peripheral activities. But when you use Jo's method, when you use something where you're focusing down on what is the 2 things I'm doing today, and you don't do the important things, the 2 things on your list, all of a sudden you've created an opportunity to see why and ask questions and get curious about it. So
honestly, I'm just sat here smiling because it makes me so excited, because people come, they think they're like, I need more time, I'm overwhelmed, I need to do the productivity tools. And then I'm like, oh, this is exciting, because just so you know, this is going to be a confronting journey, but in the best possible way, because we're going to uncover, this is why I've got a million things on my to-do list. This is why I keep myself really, really busy. Yeah. Because actually, when we create space for our more to land, like not everyone knows what that more is, it's uncomfortable, and it brings up all of that stuff. And so I get excited because people come in like thinking this is what they're coming for. I want to take Fridays off. And I'm like, they're just going to be like, in a matter of time, it's like, I feel like a completely different person. I'm doing things differently. And that for me is what gets me so excited when someone's like, oh, I feel like a different person. I'm like, yeah, it's cool.
And I love how much you have embraced productivity and action taking as the driver for what you achieve. Because for me, particularly with women who are obsessed with productivity, women who are obsessed with, action taking and getting things done, I'm that person, right? I label myself a type A personality, A+ student. I'm a high achiever. I can get lots done. And actually, for a long time before I met you, I stopped myself from actually fulfilling that potential, from achieving those big goals, by keeping myself labeled in this way and making that the reason why I was keeping myself so busy. Like I'm just a busy person. Yeah, okay, I get what you say about 2 things, but I can get 10 things done because I'm a high achiever. When in fact, having the 10 things on my list was keeping me busy and not moving forward. And so I think that the work that you do is particularly powerful for those of us who maybe are used to being busy, but are not necessarily used to being truly productive, truly effective, truly achieving like quickly and effectively, because we've always been the busy person. We've always been the person who gets 15 things done. So we think that we need to carry all of those things. And one of the big insights I had when I started working with you was that I was so busy holding other people's dreams and moving other people's things forward, and kept putting myself to the back of the list. And simply by putting my stuff first and then taking care of others, I realized that again, I was putting an obstacle or a barrier between me and truly fulfilling my potential, because I had fears about what that might look like. I had fears about what would it mean if I actually was that person? What if I actually did achieve those goals? So one of the things that I love that you talk about, Jo, is this whole idea of aiming for average. Can you explain, for people who may not have heard this before, why should we aim for just average?
Yeah, it's so brilliant, isn't it? Because none of us are here for an average life or an average business. It is the only time you'll ever see me say, like, come on, we have to aim for average. And it's basically on your weekly to-do list, like your productivity. Like, on a weekly basis, we aim for average about what we can achieve. In 6 weeks time, we will have achieved so much because we've made it doable for ourselves. So each week it's like, oh, this is my little goal. This is what I get done. Easy. I can do it. Tick. Right. Next week I do it. Whereas when we say, right, this week, I'm actually just going to block out 2 days and I'm going to catch up with everything. Well, that doesn't work. It never, ever works.
It really doesn't. Why doesn't it work?
It's not realistic. You know, like there's too much. And this is the thing when it comes back to like really simple is, you know, we know it's not easy, but there are these simple things. So aim for average is the best. I mean, it's years, isn't it, since we've been talking about that. And it's the best thing because my biggest driver is that I don't want to live an average or mediocre life. So it always makes me laugh when I'm like, come on guys, on a weekly basis, aim for average because, you know, in this 6 weeks, you get so much done. You look back and you're like, wow, this is what I've achieved. Whereas the alternative, if we try and do I've got this massive to-do list, is in the 6 weeks, you look back and you're like, okay, I didn't get to any of it.
Yeah.
You know, and so it is really, we all hear about the less is more, but until that switch shifts, you know, it flips in your mind, you know, you realize, oh, less really is more. So, you know, on a weekly basis, what will happen is we set all these big goals. We know we've got this massive goal that we're working towards, and we've put all these things out that we're going to do this week, and we get to the end of the week, we're like, I don't feel good. I'm frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. This is really disappointing. I'm not good enough because I haven't done it.
Yeah.
But the reality is you didn't even have the space in your diary. So like the two things, like from a mathematical perspective, this does not fit into this. So, you know, that's the gain. It's about the other thing about these the thing that the high achievers and the high performers do differently is they stop and they reflect and they review and they look at what's really going on here. Oh yeah, like it's not even possible for me to get all of that done, the time it would take in the time I actually have available. Yeah. So yeah, it's about, you know, stopping and looking. And so aim for average is like a little magical thing that takes a moment to get behind, but when you do, you're like, this works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love about aim for average is that if all it takes is, let's say 90 minutes a day, 4 days a week, but you stack that up every single week for a year, the days feel like they're spacious. You feel like you can live your life. You can look after yourself, but you still achieve the big stuff that you wouldn't have achieved if you burnt yourself out and went into flash and crash and flash and crash and flash and crash kind of mode. Yeah.
This is the thing about, you know, when we set these massive goals and this big vision, like that's just like that. I put the big vision out there. That's just like, that's my North Star to work towards. But on a monthly basis, have very specific, very bite-sized, like this is the thing to work towards. So I'm, you know, it's not about like, oh my gosh, like how do I do this? It's like, oh, this is just step one. Like we don't need, you know, it is really about weekly and monthly, bringing it back to very, very small, specific actions that are easy for us to get on board with. Because when we make decisions, right, this is what I will focus on, this is what I will do, we remove so much energy around, oh, you know, I don't know what to work on first.
Yeah.
Like it's like a support system. Like these little tools that like actually support us for it to feel calmer so that we go about where we were. And then we get there and we're like, oh,
yeah, I love this so much. Now, Jo, I understand you've got an amazing weekly planning system or process that you use, and you're going to share it with our listeners so they can grab that as well. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about it?
Yeah, so this is what I call my secret weapon, and it has been for so many years. I'm like, look, if there's nothing else that you do from the productivity toolkit than this, like it will change things. So it's just once a week, you have this CEO date, this beautiful review that you sit down and you show up as your future self. You come there with like, this is where I'm, you know, like really you make a ritual out of it, light your candles, go to a nice cafe, whatever it looks like, to be like, I'm the CEO version of me today. And it's like a 45-minute job. You sit there and we're like, right, we're reflecting, we're looking back, what happened this week? What did I learn? Because if we're not stopping and just getting the awareness, we can't make those little tweaks, those 2-degree tweaks each week. Like, oh yeah, actually, you know, I didn't have that. Oh, actually I want to finish at 3, but I'm not. And all of that, you know, these little things that will get you there. And then reconnecting to like the big vision, reconnecting to the monthly goals. Right, what's the 1 or 2 goals that I'm going to work on in the next 7 days? So I'm always making sure that we set a personal goal as well. It's never just about business. I always set a personal goal as well, because we know that, if I'm not showing up energized and as my best self, everything else is going to suffer. So
Yeah.
and then looking at the week ahead. So instead of me saying I've got to have this certain weekly schedule and this is the structure, it's just like, right, in the next week, what's going on? Right, when are my 90-minute blocks? When am I going to work on? Like, what does it really look like? Oh, actually, next week I don't have a lot of time, so I'm only going to set the goal that's to being really realistic. So yeah, it's my whole. So it's that's kind of like the overview, but there's a lot of mindset stuff with it as well. So this is a lovely little toolkit of what I do every single week to stay calm, stay focused, but keep moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that so much. And if you'd like to grab that one, totally free as your gift from Auntie Jojo, then make sure you come to the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/207, and we'll make sure we link that up, and also we'll share all the links so you can go and find Jo and follow her. And one of the things I would recommend that you do is check out Jo's new podcast, Meant for More with Jo Bendle. I've already binged the first few episodes and I'm absolutely loving it so far. And I think the big thing for me is that just like our big goals are best achieved in little chunks, I also think the big transformation of understanding the Meant for More movement, how to work in this way, and to really transform your ability to set and achieve big goals is to learn from Jo in small little bite-sized pieces. And so a podcast is the perfect platform. So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about why you started the podcast and what they can expect if they tune in?
Yes, thank you so much. It's so funny. So I get very, very passionate about what I'm talking about. And of course, whilst I'm coaching my clients, like always these, you go off, same as you, like somebody asks a question, we go off on this tangent, and I'm like, this would just be such an amazing resource. So my goal for the podcast is that it's a resource of tools and bite-sized philosophies that people can go and listen to. And everybody that's listened has been saying to me, oh my gosh, I'm so fired up. Yeah. Like, great. They're literally 5 to 10 minute episodes where I'm coming in and sharing like one philosophy and, like something that or what I'm seeing, or just like sometimes it's a bit of a pep talk of like, stop doing this. This is what you're doing. And it's turned out to be so much fun because I have so many things in my head which don't necessarily translate to here's, a tool or a masterclass. It's like, come and let me just share, like, oh my gosh, I really want you to know this. So it's turned into a really great, well, it's going to be, it's new. We've got about 7 episodes now. And it's turned into this lovely little resource of me being able to say, oh, you're struggling with this, go and listen to this episode. That's going to that's going to give you a different way of thinking. So my idea is that the Men for More podcast is going to get everybody thinking differently. Yeah, absolutely. And I also must say, Jo, that something you and I have in common is that because we work in such a connected way with our audiences, we see women and non-binary folk in business consistently. And people always say, oh, Tash, you've been peeking in my windows. That's exactly what I do. And your examples, the things that you talk about on your podcast, it will start to feel a little spooky if you keep listening to it, because Jo understands what it takes to create a business and how we get in our own way, and the productivity resources and tools that we think are going to solve everything, but then we don't use them. So of course they don't solve anything. And, because of your experience and of how many people you've worked with, how many people you've helped, it's almost like that peeking in the windows. You know what we do to ourselves. You now know how we get in our own way. So particularly for those of you out there who you do have your own business, you do find yourself wanting to, you want to be more productive, you want to be more effective, and you think it's going to take more hours or, some magic wand to get there, I really do recommend you listen to Jo, you listen to the Meant for More podcast, because it's inspiring you to stretch bigger in your goals, but achieve those by compressing down your focus.
And it's the opposite of what we will naturally do. We think we want big goals. We have to work harder. We need to go harder. We've been programmed over and over again that we have to work harder. We have to do more. We have to stay up later. We have to, forget our daily walks and neglect our bodies. And I love how much you are in tune with the entrepreneurial lifestyle and having a business and the unique challenges that we face. It's different to going to a job. It's different, if you're working for someone else or if your goal isn't related to business. And so, I love that. And I'm really excited for us all to see what comes from the Meant for More podcast.
I feel like I've been unleashed. It's like, okay. And it's so true. I laugh because of course it is, like every week when I'm chatting to clients, I'm like, I need to talk about this. But also the reality is the reason I know what everyone's struggling with is because it's my journey too. Like I'm in it there, but I'm watching and I've got the awareness and I know that, the goal isn't that 100% of the time I'm on fire and feeling great. It's an acceptance of sometimes I'm getting in my own way. What is the best way through this? Exciting.
So good. So good. And it is that whole, you don't do it perfectly, so we don't have to do it perfectly to get the results. And, taking away those layers of, everything's amazing. Everything is sunshiny, and actually being honest and real and raw. And if you don't follow Jo on Instagram, I would recommend that you follow her there as well, because, following along, you're someone who shares in the moment. I was having a bit of a bad day today. So here I am with my feet in the sand, or, I was struggling with feeling like I wasn't worthy. So here I am, pumping myself up. And, I think that being tenacious about your big goals and being gentle with yourself on how you get there, it's inspirational and it's something we can all aspire to. So thank you for role modeling that so well, Jo.
Thank you, Tash. It's lovely. It's lovely to get that reflection of you've come a long way. This is like practicing what I preach. Like I really, really do practice what I preach. And one thing I will never sacrifice, and this comes back to values, is yes, I could earn more money. Yes, there's different things I could do. I will never sacrifice, one, the freedom, and two, the fact that I am so heart-centered. Like I absolutely care. Yeah. And so those are things that, at the core of who I am, I'm not going to change that in my business. So I think that's again important. So definitely Instagram, because that's where I really show up very, very, like you said, this is my life. This is how I'm doing it. It's all very imperfect. And my job, part of my mission is to keep it real. The reality is it doesn't look perfect and it isn't easy, and we're doing it anyway because we can't not.
Yeah. I love that so much. Well, Jo, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. A reminder to everyone listening along, you've got that fabulous free resource from Jo, plus the Meant for More podcast. And I was reading your backdrop there, Live Big, the Meant for More podcast. And we'll also have links to where you can find out more about Jo with the show notes today. Jo, something we do at the end of each Spotlight series podcast episode is I ask you if I could quote you on something today. If I was to quote you about what we've talked about, what is it that you would want me to say?
I would say embrace the experiment, literally embrace the experiment, get out there and try something, and it's going to take you somewhere. Yeah.
I love that so much. Thank you everyone for listening along today. Thank you, Jo, for being such an epic guest. And until next time, we cannot wait to see you shine. Bye, everyone. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.